Will Jaxson Dart make the Saints pay for passing on him? Is Giants quarterback holding grudge on New Orleans? All right, ladies and gentlemen, Jaxson Dart has come out and said he ain't forgot. Okay? He ain't forgot that the Saints passed on drafting him. Okay? And he's not happy about it. Now, some people would counter that and mention that the Giants also passed on Jaxson Dart, so this whole thing's kind of moot, but it is what it is, get motivated however you can. I think it's kind of weird, personally, that Dart is, keeping a checklist that the Saints passed on him, but it is what it is. So let's go ahead and hear what the Skrmetta has to say about the upcoming game.
Saints are going to host the Giants on Sunday, and for the first time this year, the New Orleans Saints are a favorite. Do you realize not only are the Saints favored for the first time this year, but New Orleans, through 4 games, has yet to lead in a game? 4 games.
Yet to have a offensive snap while leading in the game, I believe is the actual situation.
Games, they've yet to have a lead. Not only have they not won, they have not led in a football game yet. So could be a lot of firsts this weekend for the New Orleans Saints if they're able not only get a win, but to get a lead. But they'll have to do it against Jaxson Dart. And Dart's a guy that the Saints spent a ton of time vetting during the pre-draft process. As a matter of fact, Kellen Moore, when he met with reporters on Wednesday, talked about Dart during that draft process when you might remember the Saints brought him in for a top 30 visit, pro day, Senior Bowl, all the stuff. I mean,
the problem with Dart, and we covered this extensively during the draft process, everyone liked Jaxson Dart. No one liked him in the top 10, basically is what happened, including the Giants. And I listened to a Todd McShay interview recently where he said that him and Brian Daboll had a conversation about the quarterbacks. And Todd McShay even said, I don't like Dart top 5, but I hope you guys get him. And they, which I'm not saying Todd McShay is the reason why they ended up getting him, but that was kind of the thing with this draft was that there was Cam Ward at 1, all right? But then all the other quarterbacks, it was like they're good, but not in the top 15, which is where all the quarterback needy teams were. So then the question was, all right, well, who's the first team that's going to make a move to trade up and try and get one of these guys? And it ended up being the Giants and Jaxson Dart.
Saints were sort of smitten with Dart. This was Kellen Moore about that process.
Yeah, we had a chance to go over to his pro day. I thought he just did an excellent job. He's an awesome kid. Have really enjoyed watching him through his journey from all the way back to Corner Canyon in Utah to USC to Ole Miss. He's had just an incredible career. He's an awesome kid. He works his tail off. He's a really smart football player. I think that was, when we get to go through that process with players, you get to really dig into, how much football do they know? How much can they process? And I was blown away with how much he knew. And so I thought he was really prepared for this league. Obviously, he's hopped on his first opportunity, got a win. He's going to be a really good quarterback in this league.
There is not a doubt in my mind that Kellen Moore and the Saints front office, whoever, would want Jaxson Dart on this team. Jaxson Dart is exactly the kind of player that is built for a Kellen Moore offense. There's no doubt. But sometimes in the draft process, you're just not in the position to get certain players. The Saints were at 9. They're not going to take Dart there. Now, hindsight being 2020, you could say, well, yeah, I mean, you should have took him at 9, whatever. But in that process, for what it was, Jaxson Dart was not going 9th overall. All right. So then the question is, were the Saints willing to trade up and to where in order to get him? And, say what you want. I know a lot of people don't like trading picks and all that, but the Saints were just not in the business of trading up in this draft, for better or for worse. And so they sat and took Tyler Shough at 40. If Jaxson Dart would have been there at 40, the Saints would have taken Jaxson Dart. No doubt in my mind. No doubt. He is the perfect player to run the system that Kellen Moore wants to run.
A couple of this leagues there by not quite our league.
In our league.
We got a couple of this leagues, though, from Kellen Moore. Also, something else we learned in that soundbite, Jaxson Dart has a tail. He works his tail off.
What are we doing? What are we even doing here? What's going on? All right. Is this where we're at? Is this where we're at? Where we're I mean, what the hell's going on, man?
Boo. Come on. You can do better than that.
Can I?
Yes.
Can I really?
Yeah.
Guy said he works his tail off.
He did say that.
Why do people say that?
It's a nicer way to say works his, off.
His butt off.
His butt off, yeah.
Thank God for me. Thank God. Thank God for the best in the business. Thank you. Thank you for making me who I am and that I get to sit in front of this camera and do this for the people. Thank you. Can you imagine, ladies and gentlemen, if the superstar wasn't here, if the face of the franchise wasn't here?
He's behind off.
Yeah.
How about he works?
Or the other word that means donkey.
How about he works really hard? He's great. Works
That's
really
too.
hard.
That works too.
I don't need to hear talk about a tail. So the Saints liked Jaxson Dart a lot. And there was a lot of talk about potentially drafting Dart 9th overall, which, of course, they didn't do. They took Kelvin Banks, went with the offensive lineman. But if you remember, there were reports that the Saints tried to trade back into round one. They were trying to get back from 40 back into round one in the 20s to select Dart. But in the end, it was New York that moved back into round one and selected Jaxson Dart.
Yeah, so how these conversations go, I'm sure, I mean, I can't remember the draft order off the top of my head. I know Pittsburgh was 21, I believe, and that was what was thought to be a landing zone, where it was like, all right, Pittsburgh probably is in the market for a quarterback, so if you want to trade back in, you got to get up there. So what happens is teams are trying to trade up, and they have these landing zones, okay? Obviously, the teams in those landing zones are then in a bidding war to try and extract as much value as possible. So the Saints may have talked to the Steelers or whoever to try and, around that landing zone to try and figure out, all right, what's it going to take to move up? The Giants flat out won the war, right? They offered the most, or they outbid the Saints, is how you got to look at it. It's not that the Giants were first to the party or the Saints were slow or the Saints weren't willing or whatever. A lot of the times it's just like, hey, well, we're being offered this, so if you want to get the pick, you got to do better than that. And then teams say, well, we can't do that, and then that's how it happens, right? So the Saints, we'll never know the reason. We'll never know the conversations that happened behind closed doors, but it was just one of those situations where, and it's weird, but if the Saints would have been better last year, because you know how people are always like, oh, no, you got to have a top 5, top 10 pick to get a good player. If the Saints would have had like the 19th pick, something like that, they probably would have taken Dart because that's closer to where he was mocked at. It's closer to his value. And so they wouldn't have been reaching or whatever. They probably would have taken him. So another good example of where it's like, being higher in the draft actually hurts you when it came to trying getting Jaxson Dart, similar to Patrick Mahomes, right? No one's taking Patrick Mahomes first overall. So in that situation, being in the top 3 actually hurt the chances of getting Mahomes. You needed to be a little further down to be where he actually, where his landing zone actually was.
25 overall. Well, apparently Jaxson Dart hasn't forgotten the fact that the Saints didn't take him 9th overall. And on Wednesday, when he was meeting with reporters, Jaxson Dart had this to say about the Saints not taking him in the top 10.
I think that there's always a chip on your shoulder anytime that something like that happens. But yeah, I'm just gonna go out there and play it to my as hard as I can.
When you were sitting there at draft night and they're on the clock, did you think you might get a call? Would you have any inkling one way or the other?
Yeah, I felt like my visit with them went good. So you kind of have thoughts in your head during the draft of what options are really realistic, and I definitely felt like that was a place that could have panned out. But things didn't work out that way.
It's pretty clear Jaxson Dart has a lot of oddities. He has a tail, and he has a chip on his shoulder. I mean, Muse, that's a little bit, you got to acknowledge.
God have mercy.
And a chip.
Boo.
A tail? How many NFL quarterbacks have a tail?
I would say all of them. I hear that all of them work the tail off.
Nope. No, you don't. Jaxson Dart's got a tail, and he's got a chip on his
chip. Right there, on the shoulder.
If you could have a chip on your shoulder, what kind of chip would you want it to be?
Potato chip for sure.
What kind? There's a lot of different kinds.
Oh, you're talking like flavor or brand?
You want a brand? You going like
man,
sea salt?
Yeah, no, I'll give it
natural,
to you. I'll give it to you.
Yeah.
Cape Cod sea salt and vinegar. That's what I'm going with.
See, I can't go
Love
with
it.
vinegar.
Love it, man. It's favorite chip. My favorite chip. Wow. Yep.
Paulie, how do you feel about sea salt and vinegar? Like the vinegar and the chips?
There are lots of VPNs out there at all different price points. Many of them are even free. So, should you use a free VPN? In this video, we'll break down the advantages and the disadvantages.
I like them.
Am I being punked? I've got what the hell? What's going on here? I'm in the middle of a tail conversation. Then now we're talking chips and salt and vinegar, and then there's an advertisement for a VPN. I'm trying to sit here and talk ball. I'm trying to sit here and talk Giants and Jaxson Dart, and every minute I'm in a different conversation with chips or tails or VPNs or whatever. Is this what's going on here? I mean, I'm just confused. I'm befuddled. Did I slip into an alternate dimension? Did I slip through the space-time continuum? And now I'm in some kind of in-between, upside-down type situation where, I mean, we're talking more tails than than when I was playing Sonic and Knuckles. This is bananas. I mean, what do I do? This is a 10-minute video. 20% of this has probably been on tails and chips so far. And and then another 10% is on VPNs. Can we get to the Jaxson Dart part? Can we get to the football part? There's a game in a couple of days.
They're not my favorite, but I'll have some for sure.
Yeah, the vinegar thing throws me off a little bit. It's that sour, bitter taste. I'm not here for it. I'm not here for it.
Sea salt chips are good too, just the plain sea salt.
Yeah, that's all I need.
I like the vinegar.
What if they do this for the entire rest of the video? What if it's like this for 6 more minutes? What if it's just this for 6 more minutes? What happens? I mean, do I go to the roof? Do I take the long way down, if you know what I mean? Or I guess the fast way down, if you know what I mean? You know what I'm saying?
That's all I need.
If you had a chip on your shoulder,
No way.
what would it be?
No way.
Not a huge chip guy.
Well,
No way.
You know what I really like a lot? I like Doritos.
well, wait a minute. Nacho cheese, Cool Ranch. What are we talking about here?
Cooler
No
Ranch.
way,
Ranch.
bro. Come
Cooler
on.
Ranch.
What are we doing here, ladies and gentlemen?
I don't really eat those anymore.
Yeah.
Former fat guy.
I
All
can't
I eat
believe
is like
this.
natural, just potato.
I'm
sea salt,
absolutely shocked
oil.
right
That's
now.
it.
Is this a goof? Are they goofing me?
Hi, I'm Matt. It's nice to meet you.
I mean, I'm just saying
What's
you
your
could.
name?
I mean, you're not going to. I'm just saying you could.
Talking about make my own chip. So Jaxson Dart's got a chip on his shoulder because the Saints didn't take him 9th overall. Okay, well then you've got to prove 24 teams wrong, Jaxson.
Yeah, I think it is weird whenever you hear this kind of stuff. I mean, look, it is what it is. Like I'm sure when you get passed on by teams in the draft process, I'm sure you do look at every other team that passed on you like, I'm going to prove them wrong. Fine. But this is his second game. Now it's more about like, hey man, you might just want to do a good job. You know what I mean? Like you might just want to do your job the best of your ability. I don't know if we should be in the world of like getting after these teams because they didn't draft you. I can't imagine your second game ever in the NFL as a starting quarterback in the New York Football Giants that you have to motivate yourself with that. Like shouldn't your motivation just be succeeding, your teammates, your team, your fans? Like, do you have to go to the degree of, well, this team passed on me. This team passed on me 16 picks before I was taken. How dare they? Yes, my own team passed on me as well, but, not worried about that.
Just 24 teams passed on you. Like, it's funny to me how these narratives start. And by the way, the Saints tried to trade back up to get him, but Houston, who was sitting there at 25, took the Giants deal.
Yeah.
The Giants apparently offered just a better package to Houston at 25 than did New Orleans. But the Saints were making calls trying to get back in at the end of round 1 to select Jaxson Dart. They liked him a lot, which begs the question, like, did you whiff, if you're New Orleans, did you whiff twice? And not getting Patrick Mahomes back in 2017 when you allowed Kansas City to leapfrog you to get Patrick Mahomes, which obviously was terrible. And we'll see what happens with Jaxson Dart's career, but that's another guy that you had your sights set on, you were trying to take, and ultimately you weren't able to get.
A couple things about this. So the Mahomes thing and the Lamar Jackson thing is always brought up, right? Lamar is very similar to Dart, where Lamar's own team passed on him. The Ravens passed on him to take Hayden Hurst, right? I have always, it's so hard to go back and try and do this like revisionist history type stuff. With the Saints specifically, with Jackson and Mahomes, you were running up against like one of the best runs the team would have ever had. When exactly would Mahomes have played? Like, it's hard to kind of figure out when they would have moved off Breeze. Because obviously in 2017, 2018, like the Saints start that renaissance period. 2017, they start the renaissance period. 2018, they're the best team in football. I think the best Saints team ever. So you certainly aren't going to change anything in 2018, and you certainly aren't going to change anything in 2019, where the team has exploded in 2018. So you're not going to say, yeah, we got screwed out of the NFC Championship game. Hey, let's bench Drew Brees. Let's give Patrick Mahomes a shot. So then you're waiting for Brees to get hurt, which we know he does, whatever. But like, it's such a butterfly effect. It's so difficult to pinpoint exactly when or if Mahomes would have played, or Jackson, or insert your person. So, I mean, it's one of those things where it's just like, it's so impossible to do. It really is, and you just don't know. There's so much stuff that happens. With Dart, though, he's played one game, and he was fine. They beat the Chargers. They did virtually nothing. He averaged 3.6 yards a play, the Giants. 3.6 yards a play. So it's not like he went through for 500-something yards. So I think we can relax a little bit on the, hey, did the Saints screw up by not drafting Jaxson Dart 9th overall? Remember, ladies and gentlemen, at the end, it's interesting how this works, but at the end of his rookie season, people were writing articles in New England that Mac Jones was the next Tom Brady. People were writing articles that the Patriots did it again. They had Tom Brady, and now they have Mac Jones. A year later, Mac Jones is benched for Bailey Zappi. A year later, he's gone, right? And now, how it's interesting how things swing. Now, Mac Jones is back in the conversation of, should the San Francisco 49ers start Mac Jones over Brock Purdy? And remember, Mac Jones was supposed to get drafted third overall to the 49ers, and instead they took Trey Lance. So now you have to ask yourself, did the San Francisco 49ers screw up by not drafting Mac Jones third overall? Right? The Houston Texans. The Houston Texans took C.J. Stroud at the end of the C.J. Stroud's rookie season. What were we hearing? C.J. Stroud's an MVP candidate. The Texans are back. C.J. Stroud is a franchise quarterback. The Texans could win the AFC. C.J. Stroud's going to take another step. What a rookie season. Now, what's the narrative? Is C.J. Stroud even good? Is C.J. Stroud holding the Texans back? So it's amazing how fickle quarterback conversations can be. Both ways, right? You can be horrible, then great. You can be great, then horrible, then great again. So after one game, after one mediocre game, to say, nope, they screwed the pooch, I think it's a little early.
I do think this matchup will be fascinating to watch because respect to Jaxson Dart, he got a win in his first start, and they won it. Was it 21-18? Was it the final against 21-18 or 21-19? It was 21-18 against the Chargers. But that was a game where New York in the second half was not great offensively.
Second half, brother, they weren't great the entire game. I mean, they did virtually nothing. The Chargers had 14 penalties. Jim Harbaugh doesn't have the respect of the locker room confirmed. Does Jim Harbaugh have a tail? Next up at 9 o'clock. Tomorrow in the weekly news. If you were a chip, what chip would you be? The hell was I talking about? Okay, Jaxson Dart, again, the Giants, 3.6 yards a play. They got the win, That's all that matters sometimes. I believe the Giants were +2 in the turnover margin. The Chargers did exactly what the Giants want you to do. The Chargers said, we're going to drop back. We're going to have long developing routes. Justin Herbert, or Justin Hebert, as some people would say, was sitting in the pocket, and that pass rush got after him. The New Orleans Saints, kind of on accident, do exactly what the Giants don't want you to do. What is that, lady and gentlemen? Who wants to answer? You in the back? I'm not talking about chips anymore. Yeah, over there. That's right. They get the ball out quick, short passes, can't take sacks. That's exactly what you need. Exactly what you need in this game is get the ball out quick, don't try and push the ball downfield, get it out of your hands and eliminate that pass rush. What else can the Saints do? What do the Giants do? Anybody? Yeah, you. No, I'm not talking about the kettle chips. The Giants play man. How do you beat man? You beat man with a scrambling quarterback. Moving up in the pocket, scrambling, extending plays, getting first downs. That's where Spencer Rattler's at his best. What else do the Giants not do well? Defend the run. That's right. What do the Saints do well? Run the football. James, the Saints don't run the football well. The Saints have the 6th highest EPA success rate on the ground. Okay? Saints are going to have to run this football. They're going to have to get out in front of this game. If they get behind and all of a sudden that pass rush knows that Spencer Rattler's passing and they can tee off, that's going to be bad news Bears. And I don't know if Bears have tails. Okay? So it's all in front of the Saints to where they know what they got to do. And it kind of favors the Saints as far as like how this game's going to be played and what the Giants want to do, what they don't want to do, all that stuff. Same story, though. Can the Saints execute? Can they not shoot themselves in the foot? All that. If they can play their game, and if they can do what I just laid out there, this game lines up really well for the Saints. Really well. And I think the public is kind of acting like the Giants are something they're not, because the Giants did get a win against a Chargers team who people, including me, had propped up. And they're a New York team with Jaxson Dart, who's an exciting player, and Cam Skadaboo's an exciting player. So people think the Giants are sweet. But if you look at that box score, 3.6 yards play ain't sweet. Okay. There you go.
They got the third quarter touchdown with the 2-point conversion, but they were shut out in the fourth quarter, and they only put up 21 points on the board. So as an offense, New York is scoring 18.3 points per game. Now, the Saints' defense stinks.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, why does the Giants' points per game metric not matter in this instance? Anybody want to answer? I'm sure if y'all been watching the channel, it should be pretty easy. What is the variable that makes the points per game null? Is Russell Wilson. The variable is that they changed their quarterback. The variable is that Russell Wilson's not there anymore. Tyrone Tracy is switched out for Cam Skadaboo, and Malik Neighbors is hurt. So how can you possibly look at the previous couple of games, use those metrics to try and, use that to this game? It doesn't work, right? So be careful. Again, I'm all for using data. You gotta understand how to use it wisely, or it's just kind of a waste.
Statistically, the Saints are allowing 30 points per game. Let me say that again. The Saints defense is allowing 30 points per game, which is 30th in the NFL.
Now, again, for all my statisticians out there, the Seahawks game in a 4-game sample, the Seahawks game does kind of mess those numbers up, right? So you got to be careful whenever you have a super high number or a super low number. For example, if you did the Falcons points per game, I would assume the Falcons are one of the lowest in the league because they have a 0. You only have 4 games so far, so if one of them is 0, that is dramatically going to impact your averages. The Saints number against the Seahawks, like that game, is dramatically changing their averages.
2 teams worse than you right now. So the Saints are right middle of the pack in everything statistically, in the bottom of the NFL in scoring, but the Giants' offense is the same. They're middle of the pack in everything. They're 17th in rush, 17th in pass, 20th in total, 27th in scoring. So you have these two units, the Giants offense, the Saints defense, that kind of mirror each other and where they rank statistically. So something's got to give here, and I'd hope that a little bit more veteran Saints defense against the Giants offense with a rookie quarterback making his first road start without Malik Neighbors will sort of swing the pendulum toward New Orleans. Dart did also talk, by the way, about not having Malik Neighbors and losing him for the season.
Yeah, well, you definitely can't, just replace a player like that. I mean, he's one of one, just his talent and his ability. But, we got a lot of good guys on our team, and it was definitely really hard. I think it's hard, just when you see somebody that you really respect, you have a, really good friendship and all that, go down. And, during the game, it definitely, hit us emotionally just as a team. So, our prayers are with him, and, we're constantly just trying to look after him and during this time, but we got a lot of good guys and guys who are going to be willing to step up, and, they have to step up. So, yeah, just, going into this next game, just trying to get on the same page with everybody and being able to execute at the highest level.
One of those guys are expected to step up will be former Tennessee Vol Jalen Hyatt, who's there with the Giants as well, former third-round pick. He'll likely see an increased role there with Malik Neighbors going down. So Saints and Giants, noon Sunday in the Dome. By the way, Brian Daboll did also have a thought on Jaxson Dart making his first road start in the Superdome, which, at one point there was the dome field advantage, which just isn't the case anymore for New Orleans. It just has not been a place that's been difficult for road teams to come in and win, but that's what Jaxson Dart is tasked with on Sunday.
Offensively, we're going to have to do a good job of communicating, from getting the play in to Jaxson communicating
What a photo.
to whatever snap counts we choose to use relative to how the sounds are there, which is usually loud. You simulate it and try to do the best you can here at practice, but it's definitely one of the keys in terms of being able to communicate and operate and stay on track and eliminate some of the pre-snap things that when you play at a dome stadium, it's loud like this. So we'll work at it out here, blast it as loud as we can, and just make sure we're on point with our communication.
Last time the Saints won at home was last November at the home game against Cleveland. I remember they won back-to-back home games against Atlanta and Cleveland in November, and then they lost at home to the Rams, to Washington, to the Raiders, and then they lost weeks 1 and 2 at home this year. So the Saints have lost 5 straight in the Dome. It's been a hot minute since the Who Dat Nation's left the Dome with a win. See if they can get one on Sunday with the Saints welcoming in the Giants. And a quarterback with a tail and a chip on his shoulder. He works that tail off, though, so maybe by the time he gets here on Sunday, he won't have the tail if he's worked it off. Is that fair?
That's fair, yeah.
Maybe he'll have worked it off.
Good God almighty. All right. There you go. Jaxson Dart's grudge, the revenge of Jaxson Dart, whatever. It's going to be fun, man. I think the Saints win this game. I think it lines up for them. I think it's the perfect storm. It really is. I think it's the perfect storm. I think you got an overvalued Giants team. You got a rookie quarterback playing on the road. You have no Malik Neighbors. You got the betting market, cash coming in on New Orleans. There's a lot of good. Lined up for the Saints. And you have a Saints team that's 0-4, but they're getting some love. I mean, we're seeing them move up consistently in the power ratings. We're seeing them taking money in this game. I think the numbers are kind of showing, which is why we do it every week. We try and stay ahead of this. So y'all should know from us doing this every week that the Saints' numbers are relatively all right compared to 0-4, compared to preseason where people thought they were the 32nd team in the NFL. So it's just one of those, and that's not to say the Saints are good. I had someone comment either today or yesterday. They were like, the Saints are a bottom dweller team. So yeah, they are one of the worst teams in the NFL. For sure, they are. Yeah, we are not arguing to the contrary, but that doesn't change the fact of everything we say, every day and every week. So, ladies and gentlemen, get on down in the comments below. Let me know what you think. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.